What is going on, guys? Steven here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, I'm going to be telling you guys the whole story behind how I got my first bike, this beautiful Harley Davidson Dyna with that awesome 103 V-twin, baby. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys the whole story behind how I got this bike, and then after I tell you guys the story, I'm going to also tell you guys the model. I know that I've been telling you guys to leave a comment down below and tell me what model you think this was, and you guys did leave some comments. I seen some Super Glide, I seen some Straight Glide. I even left a picture on my Instagram page asking people that what model they think this was. So this is going to be the video where I finally reveal the model of this bike. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and do a cold start, and then we're gonna go and get on the road. So let's hear that cold start, man. Ooh, she almost scared me for a little bit. I didn't think she was gonna start. She ain't never failed me though, man. She ain't never failed me. Look at this thing, man. Just looking nice and pretty. Woo-wee. Look at this thing. Oh man. Yeah, she looking nice. Yeah, we about to go on a ride, man. We about to go on a ride. I know you guys are wanting to know the model of this beautiful Harley. So let's get to it, guys. Let's go for a ride. All right, guys, let's hear that motor one time though. Let's hear it. Oh shit. Oh damn, she sound nice, man. All right, guys, so let's go, man. Let's go for a ride. So where should I start this story, man, of how I got this bike? So I'm gonna take you guys back approximately 5 years now. I've been out of the military for a year, so approximately 5 years ago I was stationed out in Hawaii. I know, beautiful place, right? It absolutely is. It's one of the most beautiful places I got to go to while I was in the military. So approximately 4 years ago, when I was stationed in Hawaii, and just so you guys know, Hawaii is made up of like a chain of islands. So if you're wondering which island I was on the island of Oahu. So Oahu is a beautiful place. I mean, any island in Hawaii is really beautiful. Granted, I didn't get to go see any of the other islands. I was stuck on Oahu for the 4 years that I was out there. But anyways, while I was stationed out there, I was working for this mast sergeant. Really solid dude. I absolutely loved working for him. He was easily one of my favorite mast sergeants that I got to work to while I was out there, because the dude felt more like a brother to me than, you know, like a supervisor. He always had my back, taught me how to be a really good leader to the Marines under me and all that good stuff. But while I was working for him, during one of our conversations, he told me that he had bought this bike while he was out on the drill field. And if you know anything about being in the drill field, or you talk to any drill instructors, they'll be the first to tell you that when you're on the drill field, you literally don't have a life, because your whole life revolves around training recruits. You don't have a lot of free time, none of that. But he ended up buying this bike while he was stationed out in South Carolina on drill duty. And while he was out there, he didn't have much time to ride this bike. So when he was out there, he put up roughly about 500, maybe 600 miles on this bike. And then once he got done with drill instructor duty, he got orders to Hawaii. So while he was out in Hawaii, he rode the bike, didn't ride it a lot, because when I got this bike, it only had about 670 miles on it. So pretty much still a brand new bike. And the reason he didn't ride it that much was because when he got out to Hawaii, he actually ended up seeing this really shitty accident that took place. So the thing is, in Hawaii, there's a highway called like Kamehameha Highway, and I'm legit not talking about Dragon Ball Z. I thought it was some Dragon Ball Z shit too when I first heard of the name of the highway, but it's actually named after a king that lived in Hawaii. So the highway is named after him. It is not Dragon Ball Z. No relationship to Dragon Ball Z.
It's over 9,000.
So that highway though during rush hour, it tends to get very, very backed up. So I guess what happened was there was a whole bunch of cars that were backed up at this stoplight, and there was a semi-truck whose brakes had failed, and this semi-truck had no way of starting, and he had already passed the ramp that he could have, you know, went onto, you know, that are pretty much designed for like when your brakes give out for those big semi-trucks, because I guess it must be like pretty common. So he had already passed the ramp, so he had no other options but to pretty much plow through the traffic. And the biker was, you know, in front of some cars, and when that semi-truck hit the cars, it completely sandwiched this guy, and the guy died. So he ended up seeing that accident and pretty much told himself, like, I don't want to ride no more. So he pretty much parked the bike and never rode the bike again while he was stationed out there. And, you know, I get it, man. If you see an accident that bad, it probably would traumatize me too and probably make me want to never run or ride again. But on top of that, the dude, he's a father. He's got kids. So I guess there's really like no need to go and ride, because you want to stay alive long enough to see your kids grow up. So I get the perspective, I get the mindset. And to be real with you guys, I was never really a bike guy myself. I pretty much had the same mentality that I don't want to ride a bike. Bikes are stupid. People don't pay attention to bikers and stuff like that. But here I am now, right, doing a motor vlog. So that should tell you how fun riding is. But anyways, he stopped riding, he put the bike up, and the bike pretty much sat for, I think, the 4 years that he was out there, because he was out there for 5 years. So the bike sat for pretty much 4 years. And during those 4 years, the registration expired, and it pretty much got to the point where he was getting ready to leave the island. I think he had about 2 months left as he was leaving the island. He realized, like, oh shit, you know, the registration's up, so I can't ship the bike. And when he realized he couldn't ship the bike, because I'll tell you right now, Hawaii is one of those states that they are super anal about that type of stuff. Like, you could have had like an expired registration that at least showed them that, like, hey, you know, this bike does belong to me, it was registered in my name, the registration is expired, but I'm getting ready to leave island anyway, so can you guys just ship it? Because the thing is, when you ship a bike while you're in the military, they ship it along with the rest of your stuff. So it's going in a container with the rest of like the stuff that you have like from your house. Like, it doesn't get shipped the same way your car does. So you would think like, oh, it's not a big deal, like it doesn't have to go down to the port and get inspected. Hawaii doesn't care. If you're trying to ship a bike or car, your registration has to be up to date. Now I don't know if like every other state is the same way, but I know Hawaii, like, they're super anal about that type of stuff. So he pretty much realized that he couldn't ship the bike. And once he realized he couldn't ship the bike, he started looking at some other options. One of those options being, okay, can I get the bike registered here in Hawaii so that I at least have a registration that's up to date? Now mind you, this whole thing was happening during the pandemic. In Hawaii, during the pandemic, you literally couldn't be seen by the DMV for at least 4 months. Probably more like 5 or 6 months, honestly. You couldn't get an appointment. That's how far your appointments were when the whole thing was happening with the pandemic. Mind you, he's only got 2 months left. So he couldn't get the appointment done. So his other option was he could go back to South Carolina and try to get the registration done that way. But in reality, like, what sense does that make? You're gonna fly back to South Carolina just to try and get a registration done? Like, it really makes no sense. Like, you're probably better off just selling the bike, because you're gonna pay for like maybe a $800 plane ticket to go back to South Carolina just to get your registration done. It literally makes no sense. You might as well get the bike registered in Hawaii or just sell the bike, because it just makes more sense. It's less of a headache. So that was pretty much his two options. Well, he had a third option. The third option was he could have tried and sell it to a local. But the way that Hawaii works is, if you purchase a bike whose registration is expired, the new owner of that bike has to now go and pay the back taxes. So mind you, his bike had been expired for well over 3 years. So the new owner would have to pay the back taxes on that. So they're looking at well over $1,000 just to get the bike registered, because they're having to be the ones who are responsible for the back taxes at this point. So he couldn't find somebody who would buy the bike. So then his other option was he'd try to take it to the dealership and see what the dealer would give him. So the dealership actually offered him a big chunk of money, or you know, something decent. So they were offering him, I believe, $12,000 for the bike. But even they didn't want to deal with the headache of having to try to get this bike registered. And I think a big part of that was because they realized, like, oh my god, this isn't like, it's not like a lowrider ass. It wasn't one of those hot bikes that, like, oh my god, we can sell this bike within the first month or so. So I think they realized, like, this bike is gonna sit, because this bike wasn't one of the most desired bikes by Harley enthusiasts. Like, it wasn't one of those bikes that was flying off the showroom floor within the first week. It was a bike that the dealer knew it was gonna sit, you know, for a very long time. So I think that played a big part of them just kind of saying, like, no, you know, we don't want to deal with the registration and stuff like that. So even though they made him an offer, they actually didn't really want to buy the bike. The offer was more so if he was able to get the bike registered himself, which again, he couldn't, because his appointment was at least 4 months out, and he had at least 2 months to try to get this stuff done. So it wasn't happening. So pretty much when he realized that he had no other options, I guess he must have thought back to the conversation that me and him had, because he hit me up and was like, hey man, so here's what I want to do. He wanted to give me power of attorney so that I could sell the bike for him while he was gone. And I was cool with it. Honestly, I was cool with it, because I was like, dude, I'll help you out however I can, man. Like, however you want to go about doing this, I'll help you out. So that was the first thing that he wanted to do. And he actually ended up getting the power of attorney, getting all the necessary paperwork. But something happened on his end where he realized the power of attorney was going to be a headache. It was going to be a headache for me, because you know how it is, man. You could give somebody power of attorney, but there's always like that one additional paperwork that you don't have when you're trying to get something situated, that was never mentioned, it's not on their website, but when you're there in person, they're like, oh, do you have this one paperwork? And it turns out that you don't have it, so you can't get it knocked out. So that I guess that must have been one of the things that he was thinking about, because even after getting all the paperwork done, he pretty much was like, man, don't even worry about the power of attorney, man. I'm gonna just try to sell it. So then he actually ended up making me an offer where he was I think he was trying to sell it to me for like $8,000, and I was like, nah man, I can't ditch out $8,000. And honestly, if it was like another bike, maybe like a lowrider S, I probably would have ditched out the $8,000. But again, this was a model that wasn't very appealing to me. So I was like, nah man, I can't really ditch out $8,000 right now. It got to the point where the bike really just started to become a headache for him, because all he cared about was leaving Ireland. He had been on Ireland for 5 years away from his family, because his family had already moved back to Florida, and all he wanted to do was just leave Ireland. And he didn't really care about the bike anymore. He was okay with taking a loss on it. He just wanted to leave the island. So that's pretty much where I came in, and he pretty much hit me up a couple weeks later and was like, hey man, so I'm gonna tell you what, I don't care about taking the loss, but honestly, I want you to have this bike. I know that I could sell it or try to go the route of the power of attorney, and you know, if they end up needing some additional paperwork, then we can sort something out. He could have went that route. We could have done the whole power of attorney thing and got the bike sold eventually, but I think he just had enough, and he ended up just saying, hey man, so I want to sell you this bike for what I owe on it. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, we had a conversation last time where he tried to sell the bike for like $12,000, and I think that was like roughly 2 years prior. So at this point, 2 years later, maybe he still owes right around like $8,000 or $6,000, whatever the case may be, right? So I was like, all right, well, you know, what you owe on it? And he was like, I owe $3,000 on it. I was like, oh my god! Wait. So you telling me you about to sell me this brand new bike, practically a brand new Harley, 674 miles on this bike, and you're about to sell it to me for only 3,500 bucks. He was like, bro, I told you, man, I don't care about this bike. I don't ride it. It just sits. I just want to get rid of it. At this point, it's become more of a headache than what it's worth. And I don't want any other reasons to hold me back from leaving Island what I'm supposed to leave Island. So I was like, damn, bro. But for 35 though, it's like, bro, that's what I'm asking. So at this point, I'm like, oh my God, how do I even deny that? How could anybody deny that? I said, okay, cool. let me call my bank. I'll transfer you that right now. So that is pretty much how I ended up getting this bike. Mind you, I didn't care for the bike. Honestly, I think I was more so just wanting to help him out more than anything, because he done so much for me that I was like, man, I just want to help this guy out, man. Like, 3 grand isn't anything. Like, if I could just get the registration done, I can turn around and flip this bike. 3 grand, like, what, you know, it's whatever. I gave him the 3 grand, and my first thought was, I'm gonna just go ahead and try to sell this bike. So when I first bought the bike, I didn't ride it for a while. I didn't ride it because the registration was up. When I bought the bike, I didn't even have a motorcycle endorsement. I didn't have my motorcycle license. I hadn't done the safety course. I hadn't done anything. So the bike really just sat for a while. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I still have some time on Island. Let me at least get my MSF course done. And then I'll try to get my motorcycle endorsement, so I could at least ride the bike for a little bit while I'm still on Island. Right? At least enjoy the last little bit of time that I had on Island. So I said, all right, cool, I'm gonna get that done. After I got all the paperwork done, I started riding the bike, which was probably the biggest mistake that I made. And you guys are probably like, how is that a mistake? Because it was a mistake because I never planned on keeping the bike. I literally never planned on keeping the bike. And look at my man's over here, man. He just told me my Harley look good. Hey, brother, I know. I'm being cocky as hell right now, but no, it is a definitely good looking bike. But oh, I think he trying to talk. What's going on? Chilling? Appreciate it, man. What bike? Okay, yeah, that thing look nice. Yeah. So Harley? Yeah, Harley. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. All right, so I totally forgot where I left off at. Okay, so I had no plans on keeping this bike, but the biggest mistake I made was riding it. And when I started riding the bike, I fell in love with riding. And pretty much at that point, I was like, okay, I know I want a bike. It may not be this bike, but I want to definitely have a bike. So instead of trying to sell the bike, I thought maybe I could take it to the dealership and trade it in. So that was my first thought process, and I actually took this bike straight to the dealership and I tried to trade it in for an MT-09. And the funny thing about that story is that I took my wife with me, and she saw me on the MT-09 and she just thought, yo, you look like you're sitting on top of this bike, because I'm 6'2". And I guess, yeah, I didn't realize it until she showed me some pictures, and I was like, you know what, I do kind of look hella big on this bike. The bike was fast now, it was definitely fast, but compared to this Harley, which I feel like I'm sitting in the bike, I felt like I was more so sitting on top of the bike with the MT-09, and it just kind of wasn't really looking, I didn't feel like I looked the way I would want to look on the bike. Good bike, great bike, but after what my wife told me and after seeing some pictures, I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. So then talking to the guy who was trying to help me trade in this Harley, he actually saw the Harley and was like, dude, you should talk to this guy named Eric. And Eric was a guy who worked in the parts department who had a Lowrider S. And like I showed you guys in the other video, this Lowrider S was the bike that inspired this build. I saw his Lowrider and I was like, oh my God, this is, if I can build my bike to look like that, I will keep my bike. And after talking to Eric, he was like, you could definitely do it, man. Like, you can build a Harley to make it look however you want. And it was pretty much at that point where I was like, all right, I don't want to hear nothing else. I'm gonna keep this bike. and I'm gonna build this bike to look exactly the way his bike looked. Mind you, this dude had a much bigger budget, and there's definitely a lot of things that he had done to his bike that I still don't have done to mine, but in due time I most definitely will. But his bike was like just amazing. I was just like, this is how I want my bike to look. So it was pretty much at that point that I was gonna keep the bike that I got now. So that right there, guys, is the story behind how I got this bike. And I'll tell you guys what, I just feel blessed that he chose to sell me the bike. He could have sold this bike. In all reality, he could have sold this bike. We could have totally done the whole power of attorney thing, and I could have got the bike sold for him and then, you know, split the profit. But he just wanted to get rid of the bike, and I just feel absolutely blessed that he sold me the bike at the price that he did, because had he not done so, I wouldn't be doing this vlog right now. I wouldn't have built this bike. I wouldn't have experienced what it feels like to be a bike owner. But the fact that he did, man, I just feel blessed, you know, because I know that without a doubt I would never ever get a opportunity like that, just the way the whole thing played out. In all reality, I guess I did him a favor, and in return I pretty much got a brand new Harley out of it. So I feel blessed, man. But I'm pretty sure you guys are probably wanting to know the model by now.
At last.
I told you guys the whole story behind how I got this bike, so I know you guys want to know the model. Oh my god, you guys are gonna laugh so hard when you guys see the complete transformation. When you guys finally see what this bike used to look like stock, you guys are gonna laugh. But without further ado, man, this bike, hold on, let me get some drum roll. So this bike started off as a 2013 Harley Davidson. Yeah, there was a lot of suspense there, right? I was trying to create some suspense. Okay guys, so this bike started off as a 2013 Harley Davidson Fat Bob. That was what this bike started off as, and I'm gonna throw a whole bunch of clips so you guys can see what it looked like. You know, that is what it started off as you know, man, the Dyna Fat Bob was not a very popular model. It was not one of those models that was completely selling off the showroom floor the moment that it hits. It was one of those models that Harley enthusiasts hated. They hated the dual headlights. They hated that ugly rear fender, which I did too, man. That thing was, I don't know what Harley was thinking when they decided to do, yeah, to build this bike the way that they built it. But that's what this bike started off as. To be real, it was ugly. I was not proud of the bike, but at the price that I got it, I couldn't turn it down, because once I knew what I could do to transform this bike, I pretty much was like, you know what, I got a bike for stupid cheap. I could put some money into it. Even if it doesn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, I still have enough of a margin that I can turn around and sell the bike at a profit. So it was a win-win either way. So that's why I decided to, you know, take the bike and actually do the build. But yeah, guys, this bike is a 2013 Fat Bob. Man, it's so crazy just because I never imagined that this bike would look the way that it does. And I get a lot of compliments from this bike. A lot of people, you know, they could never even tell that this used to be a Fat Bob unless I tell them, pretty much. Unless I tell them that it was a Fat Bob, these people would never ever know. But now you guys know, man. You guys know what this bike started off as. You guys know the whole story behind how I was able to get this bike, how lucky I was, and how the whole thing played out. But now, guys, I want to know, how did you guys get into riding? Was it a friend who introduced you to riding? Did you find yourself in a situation similar to mine where somebody who just wanted to get rid of a bike? Or did you just have a friend who had a bike, loved it, kind of told you about it, and told you should go get a bike yourself, and then you were like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go get a bike, and then you ended up getting your first bike that way? You know, how did you guys start, man? You guys know how I got started. I want to know how you guys got started. So go ahead, leave a comment down below and let me know how you guys got started, man. But overall, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed the story, kind of listening in on how I was able to get my first bike. And if you did, guys, all I ask is that you guys leave a comment, leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you guys want to see more videos like this. But I'm gonna cut it here, guys. It's a beautiful day, so I'm gonna continue riding and enjoy this ride, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.